Thank you. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Marco Yunga Tacuri. Yo soy de Ecuador, vivo en Brattleboro, Vermont. Nyukaka kuimashikunata, nyukaka makumikanikan, nyukaka epodormanta, nyukaka Brattleboro manta. Good night, everybody. My name is Marco Yunga Tacuri. I'm from Ecuador. I live in Brattleboro since 2014. So I try to use the languages I spoke, and they come from my homeland, Ecuador. I spoke in Spanish and I spoke in Quechua. And so that's a big part of me, and it's a big part of who I am discovering to be myself and embrace my indigeneity. So I am an indigenous person from Ecuador, and I'm proud to be here right now, sharing with you here in this new land, this new home of mine, my work, my photography portrait project. And I hand with you like this some information that I want you, perhaps, like, you can check it out. It's basically, the title says, like, what do we lose when we cross a border? Because this photography project is about immigration. And as an immigrant myself, I needed to find a way to communicate that. But the deepest part that I want to communicate and I want to show to the world is my neighborhood. So the people who were with me, who grew up with me, who played with me, who went to school with me, and because of the lack of like leadership or political responsibility in our countries, the lack of like education chances, the lack of like free healthcare, force us to leave our beautiful country. So it's kind of like, I grew up among like all these generational friends, and every week one of us decided to leave. Since the 1980s, 1990s, like kids that we finished high school, elementary school, and then boom, disappeared at the age of 13. So they were already here working as part of the labor of this country, moving the economy. So we just saw on that idea of leaving and finding a new opportunity where so people start leaving to different countries like the United States, Spain, Italy. So since 1970 till this time, like more than 2 million Ecuadorians have left the country. But most of them are still living undocumented. And so most of the people that you see here are still undocumented. They've been here for more like 20 years. And that means that they haven't seen their family. So I am a citizen. I got my citizenship like 5 years ago. I was able to go see my family like before, but in these pictures I have my brother and my sister also, and so they got to see my parents after 23 years. So that was a long time, right? So, and through that goes like so many stories, and they carry so many very vulnerable stories that when we get together we share, but it's really hard for us to bring those things out because they're so personal, right? And as I mentioned the other day to a group of students who were here, like you, listening to this conversation, I needed to like put some like warning to myself, like kind of like just allow myself to say that I am very vulnerable when I share this story, because this is a story that does not just belong to me, but belongs to the faces of these people. So I am going to focus a little bit in the project itself of the photography. If you see like their faces, a lot of people have made like very lovely comments about like, I can see like their faces, it's like they're looking at me, their eyes are just like present, their faces are just very engaged in the moment. But also they're very vulnerable at that time, because I was able to capture those faces and those expressions based on one specific question. Because I knew that most of them at that time were undocumented, and the wish is for everybody to like, I wish I could go. How is it? How is the neighborhood? how's the city? How's the country doing? Did you see such a person? Did you see this? Oh, what about my boyfriend, my girlfriend? Have they married already? Did you know any? So all the gossipy things I was kind of like bringing to them. So as a way to get to know each other. Because with a lot of them, we haven't get to see that for almost like more than 20 years with some people. Jose Luis, he was my best friend in elementary. When we finished the last year, so we were best buddies, and that was the last time I saw him, in my country. I came to this country when I was 22. So we were 11 years old when we said goodbye at the elementary. We're not from the same neighborhood. So I never saw him again until 2018. Somebody told me, Jose Luis works, he's a jeweler. He works in Manhattan. Why don't you reach out to him? It's like, all right, I give him a, Facebook, boom, 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 and I give him a call. Hey, it's me, remember? Oh, what about if we get together? I had that idea in mind, say, how can I bring my neighborhood back? How can I bring everybody, the people that I love? It's really hard, but photography makes it possible. It's a complement into these desires of humanity. We want everything in one thing, and I think photography kind of provides us that opportunity. And I reach out, as I reach out to Jose Luis, I reach out to many of them. After 15 years, after 12 years, 10 years, 5 years, 25 years, a long time, people that perhaps like Doña said, I was a kid when she came to this country. And I still remember her because we used to go home after school and stop to her little corner store selling tortillas and papas and say, can we have some, but we don't have money, we can pay you tomorrow. I said, okay. So the next day, when the day was to pay, what came, so we crossed the street and pretend that we don't see it. And she was like, I'm gonna tell you, Mom, you don't see her. Little rascals. And so she was there, doing pretty much the same thing in the Roosevelt Avenue, in Roosevelt Boulevard, in Queens. It's like, what? And things like that are beautiful to see, and it's like, how can I bring her back into our memories, our moments? When people see her, say, oh, I remember her. Where is she? It's like, of course, I needed to do something else. And I was always in love with photography, but I was always shy about it. And I think Josh and Davida know how shy I am, because I've been always coming here, hanging out, I have these photos, I want to do this, just do it, bring it, do it, let's do it. And so thanks to their pushing me this is possible. I started this project in 2018. So I felt empowered, I felt brave, I felt engaged, and I felt that because I got my citizenship, it was my time to do something for my community. It was time for bring their voices in some way, or their faces and their stories in some ways. And not tell their story, but tell our common story, which is different, right? So then I decided to give it a shot, get in contact with them. I make a list. I don't know if you got the chance to see my statement, and there's a list of names here, but there are many more people that it's still missing in my list. At least in that one, because in my other list, I keep adding the names. And I contact them, but before going, I needed to feed myself. I said, how can I become a photographer or a confident photographer? So I reach out to some people, local people that are part of the VCP, but also that I know that love photography, that work in in the Marlboro College and Greenfield Community College, etc. So I try to get invested in and get empowered. How can I do this? And so they helped me and fed my confidence and said, just go and see what happens. There's nothing guaranteed. So I had a list of like 20 people. I had like 4 days going to New York, and I said, all right. So I contact them. I'm gonna be there. Let's catch up. But for some ways, like I forgot how it was to be in New York as an undocumented immigrant. Because it's not like being here that I said, hey, Josh, let's go have a beer, right? Okay, what about after 6? Great, let's do it. There you call, say, hey, like, can I meet you like at 6? Well, like I have to work. It depends. Like if somebody else said, hey, I have like a gig, so I want somebody to paint the wall or like to fix something, I have to go. It was really hard to catch up with them because the life as an undocumented immigrant in New York depends on like the jobs that come to you hour per hour, every single hour. And so I was like, I need to have some ways to really catch these people. And so I started like calling them, say, hey, can I spend the night in your apartment? Oh, sure, okay. So having conversations like, day before they go to work, like at 5 in the morning, like some coffee, some blah, blah, blah. And like, for example, this is at 5:30 in the morning, for example. He's just going to work. It's kind of at the beginning of winter, like in 2018. So I spent the night in his apartment. We were walking. He's like, okay, so now it's time for you to go. Let's go. So I was on the way, carrying my backpack with him, and ready to capture, talking to him and asking the question, what would you do if you would have like 5 minutes to go to Ecuador? Imagine like you can have 5 minutes to be in Ecuador. What would you do? So that was the question that I used for captions, like, the attention, like, wow. So if you can imagine, like, I'm gonna remove myself a little bit, just imagine, like, what are they thinking when I ask them that question? 5 minutes in Ecuador. There are people, they haven't been in Ecuador for more than 20 years, most of them. Do you know? Do you think? Do you want to guess? Who's brave? Who would like to guess? Josh.
Maybe the scents or smell like a market or something, or smelling a hug friend. 5 minutes, that's quick.
Yeah.
I love that question.
And that question, thank you for your answer. And that question, like, open like a lot of like sensitivities and like people like cry. I cry myself because I feel kind of like selfish in some ways because I was like, I am a citizen now and I have the power to go back and forth. And they don't, right? But at the same time, like that question, like, was bringing some intention. It's like opening like the conversation to something different. And like, most of the people would say, I would go there, like, if I got those 5 minutes, I like hug my mom for 5 minutes. I will kiss my mom, and like, nobody said my dad, but everybody's like, my mom, like, my mom. So just looking at the faces when they're saying or finishing that moment, that's when I got my camera and started like, capturing that. As many as I could. But to be honest with you, like at that time, it was not intentional, I guess. It was just like natural. It just happened naturally. Then later, I was like, how did this happen? And it started to make sense, trying to be more like honest with myself. Like it's not wow, like what a great question, what a great moment, what a great shot, perfect, perfection is here, boom. It didn't happen like that. It was because when I came back, my first time, like with this list of 10 people that I got like photographed, I got only 2 people photographed. I had only 2. And I came back and I talked with one of the people who was guiding me. I don't know if you know Christopher Iron, and also like John Willis he used to work at Marlboro College. So both of them were helping me a lot at that time. And so Christopher was like, so what? 2 people is a lot. Just now, like look at the different angles that you have. Like keep learning, keep like embracing. Like next time maybe you're gonna have more, but don't focus on the number right now. Focus on the story that you're getting from them. That's because he reminded me that was one of the things that were motivating, because I get invested in like many shots, and with my super duper camera, I can get as many shots as I can, but I was like, that's not a goal for me right now. I need to like reshape that thing. And so I went to New York several times in 2018, 2019, and February 2020, I came from photographing Orlando and Graciela, his wife, and I was planning on going back to continue doing, but then boom, COVID happened, and so everything had to end at that. So I've been like holding these images. I've been trying to, what should I do? Should I go back and continue taking more pictures? That's when I was like sneaking here. I found more like engaged with VCP, and David was like, just bring them, let's do it. Let's talk with Josh, and we'll put something together. So this is the first part, because the project itself is an ongoing. There are more people, but at the same time, like, what is next for me? What is next for me as an individual, as an immigrant, as a parent, as a teacher, as a friend, as a person that still need to like continue investing my time, not just telling my story, but also like sharing this common consequence of immigration. Because if I am like a citizen and they're still working as undocumented, there is a big issue happening right there that I left many years ago. Exploitation, that's in the stories. It's like, what's happening to undocumented people? As Bilma would say, like, I don't want to point this story and who Bilma is, but and she's like, like you don't know your right, and then you are a subject of abuse, like especially sexual abuse, constantly being like, abused in that, because there is a word that I don't like to use. It's the word illegal. When people call illegal immigration or you are illegal, I prefer to call it undocumented, because that's something that can be fixed. But when you are illegal, you are a subject of domination. You are subjugated, and that's always reminding you. And that's something that we had to carry over there. So you are illegal, and for them, like you are a subject of domination. You always have to be underground. And some people, you could say, like, I live in New York, and I say, well, I survive in New York. Because as an undocumented person, you always have to like make it like, you have to make it every day, And you have to make it. Like if you go to work and you drive and you don't have a driver license, you have to make it. You have to make it work to work, and you have to come back, right? Like without getting caught by the police. And that's a story that happens every day. If you get sick, you have to go go to the hospital, get attended, and you never show up for checking because you cannot pay the bills, right? Or you have to go to the underground doctor, the person who left the country that used to be a doctor in their country and open like these secret and underground clinics. So you have to expose yourself and risk your life being part of that. But that's the things that sometimes you have to do because you don't have access to healthcare as being undocumented. So those are those and many more are the complications of living undocumented. And when catching up with them and hearing that, continue happening, they call you for work for a week, and then at the end they end up saying if I don't have money to pay you, so if you don't leave, I will call ICE, and so you choose. You make me work for a week, what can I do? Sorry. So it's the deal that you have to do sometimes, the risk that you have to go through. More than 2 million people living in the United States, in Italy, in Spain, since 1970 till especially till 2008, kind of. Since 2008 until 2014, pretty much the number of people who migrated, left the country, reduced significantly. There are only few people living because Ecuador started growing into a different economy. Things are changing. Education became free education for everybody. Healthcare, free healthcare for everybody. Government was pushing politics focused on local rather than importing stuff. And one of the very interesting strategies that the government at that time implemented is that there was a campaign for encouraging Ecuadorians who have left their country to come back. So that was a fascinating thing, and a lot of the people who were living undocumented took advantage of that, because what the government was providing is a container, a huge container, and the only thing you have to pay was $4,000 for the container itself. Kind of, you were buying a container, so put anything you want, everything you want, anything. A car, refrigerator, your couch, your bed, everything that belongs to you, or your business, if you're a cabinet maker, a mechanic, a body shop. So all that full container, the transportation of that was for free. So was the government, Ecuadorian government was paying for that. So as an incentive to bring people back to Ecuador to continue investing and moving the economy. So a lot of people took advantage of that, and they returned. They went back to the country, in Spain, in Ecuador, from Spain, from Italy, from Ecuador. So a lot of people moved. Unfortunately, things change. People don't like that. Governments don't want to continue doing that. In Ecuador, state is again collapsing. People are still living as before. As the other day I shared, during the weekend, I saw a friend of mine posting on Facebook a picture of them sitting and kind of among a bonfire, and he says basically, I just want to let you know that I'm fine. I am in Honduras right now, and I am almost there. And I hope when I get there, I get to see you again. It was just kind of going back to that body memory. Or I did that 23 years ago, I had to be, but now people continue doing that. And the story is the same. Because when we left our country, we didn't have the privilege to take a plane and boom, got here, right? We have to go through many different ways, which is and as an undocumented people, you have to risk your life crossing the border, as I did, walking 3 days and 3 nights in the Sonora Desert and the Arizona Desert, and then getting to a country where you don't speak the language, you don't have documents, then what do you do, right? So it's an ongoing story. But immigration, in some ways, for me, as a theory, it's a very modern way of slavery, undocumented immigration, because you can exploit people and nobody knows, and nobody cares. Oh, no, it's not that nobody knows. People know, companies know, government know, but they don't care, right? Because they know that a company can hold as many people, and most of them are going to be undocumented, but they're going to be providing some movement to the economy, which is good. So that's a very silent thing. So they want to keep it, because if the minimum rate, what's the word? Minimum wage. Thank you. Minimum wage. Thank you. when I came to this country was $3.75. I used to work as maintenance man for McDonald's. I was getting like $270 or $2.75. A raise was like $2.80. Wow, I get, So, and also because we have to come here like paying lots of money. The friend who's coming, he's paying $16,000 to come. I had to pay $12,000 to get here in 2000. So, paying big amounts of interest for that money, and getting here, it was a big thing, and having to, find like 3-4 different jobs, 80, 85, 90 hours per week. So trying to make the money to send back and pay with that, right? So pretty much we all have to do that. That's a common story that we all have together. But individually, like as I said, each one of them had their particular consequence as an immigrant. And I needed to capture it, and I needed to touch base with them and see where they are and see how they are and get in contact with them and post their pictures on Facebook and social media and get their comments and say, hey, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for thinking that we exist. And that's a lot for me. Because yes, that's one of the things. I want people to know that they exist and that I'm still here, and that even in their condition of immigrant, undocumented immigrant, they are still provide something to this community, to this country. And they are right here with us, and I think their stories needs to be heard, and I hope one day I can bring them out to the public. But for now, I want you to stay with their faces, with the way they're looking the world, and the hopes that they have. So I really want to thank you, Josh, Davida, and thank you for coming. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And if you want to keep those copies of the document I gave you, and then later reach out to me, I'll be happy to continue having the conversation. And I really appreciate your presence here, and I want to keep some space for conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Mark.
Thank you.
Questions? I'm sure people have questions. Fire away.
Josh, oh, sorry.
I was giving you a standing ovation.
Oh.
That's my standing ovation.
Thank you.
But I do have a question. I've seen your work over the years. Mark was a wonderful teacher at my daughter's school. And it's great to see you. You're always there capturing images here in our town. And there is a bravery of bringing out a camera, and there is an interaction that you do that you're so brave to do, even here in this town. But seeing all these, I just wanted to say you're doing what your dream is to bring these friends to us. I mean, it's a small public group here, but you're doing it. You're doing exactly what you wanted to, and but it's so important to hear that question. It's I love that you asked a question, because that to me, I love photography. I consider myself a photographer as well, but now that I know that question, it'll be so much deeper everything. When I bring Kate here and Ava says, look, it's so much deeper because you've given us this connection. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Thank you. Anne?
First, I find all of this so powerful, everything you said, and the faces, so you could feel the opening, that moment. But I'm so curious about, why people continue to leave. Is it almost always jobs, or is it other stuff?
Yeah, I think it's the economy unfortunately collapsed again. 1980, we have one of the most like horrible like governments in the history, and it was kind of like a dictatorship, not quite. It was kind of like headed as a democratic government, but it was the kind of action of like persecuting people who went against their policies, and like neoliberalism. They were bringing neoliberalism like into the country, and so for those of who went against that, so or they were disappeared, or they were getting killed. So in that matter, like there was a lot of like college students that at the time that were trying to go against the government. It was better for them to leave the country than staying. And it was the same thing that's happening, in Chile, but it was in a lower scale in Ecuador, but the same idea, same recipe. In the 90s, there was a bankrupt that pushed like the biggest wave of immigration, Ecuadorian to migrate to different countries, like especially in 1999. You woke up, the banks were closed. People was like, "Where's my money?" And so, of course, like especially like the poor people, that invest their money for making their business move, and so the next day you cannot do that. So people, die, people suffer, and still like suffering the consequences. And the person who caused that is today's Ecuadorian president, which is so. And so people decided to leave, and living in a beautiful Ecuador geographically, but very complex as a society that is trying to create a national identity, or to trying to prove European heritage, created so many complex in our ways of being. Me as being a kid, growing and being born in the indigenous community, was not allowed to be expressing myself as an indigenous, but the opposite. I was forced to erase that part of my identity. So we grew up like that, always like subjugated, always intimidated, always like reminded that being indigenous was bad, and erasing my language, the way I look like my classmate, where I was born, trying to erase that. And so all those things kind of like add to build up your levels of esteem, self-esteem. So you're always like undermined. It's really hard. Like, and I think I still see that in myself. Just like being able to like say myself, I'm a photographer. No, and my wife's like, you are a photographer. Like, I don't know. I have a camera, but and it even happened in our community. To not really like trust sometimes that something new, something amazing can happen to one of you, because you are from here and everybody's the same. How is that? That like you are not even nothing special than anybody else. Like when I go back and I said, I work as a teacher. How could you be a teacher? You are from here, dude. You can be a teacher. Like, yeah, you can check in the website. My name is there. My face is there. It is complicated, because it's a whole society that's needed to change and transform. And from us, from the people who left and found an opportunity, and of course, one of the biggest things that we want to do is like, oh, I want to work and make money, right? And I want to build a house, and I have a car, I have a business, and go back. And the people who always push us away, as I said, like the people who thought that were better than us because of the color of skin. Racism and discrimination has been like a big thing in Ecuador, especially in my city. When we go back, and it's not that we are showing up the things that we have, but there are like material things that we were able to make through working here. So there is a pushback, say like, oh, you have money, but you're not part of our class. It's kind of like class work. So you're the new rich. It's like always reminding you again. And in that, like, I want to bring like the title, like the Longos del Barrio. Like Longo means, something people used to, it's an insult. It's an insult that people can give it to you, and you like, and really it's painful when people call you like that, in that way. But Longo also means a kid, a young adult, who is like, wild, free spirit, who's like, like to play, like to go here. That's a Longo. Right? That likes to do like, hey, can you go get me some, groceries? And the Longo is the guy who will run and bring your stuff. Here it is, very resourceful, sneaky. But that's the part that it's not you. And so but it's the part that like, is related to the color of your skin, the place where you are, and the last name that you have. It's always the truth. Los Longos. And so I really want to like recreate that. So all those things will push us to like, sometimes like, there's no space for me here. I don't have place, even though it's my home, I don't have a place here. But a big part is the economy that pushes you to leave. It's a big, big, big. Thanks for your question.
I have one. I'm thinking about other people I know who have had a similar experience, but from around the world. And one of them is a friend of mine whose family came from the Ukraine in like the 80s. And the parents were like professional engineer and a chemist. And they had to leave with no money and like one little suitcase. And they left because their girls would not be able to go to college and didn't have like an economic future because they were Jews and their last name identified them, and on their passport it was Jew instead of Ukrainian, or at that time it was the Soviet Union. So I often would ask my friend, like, what was how did your parents find meaning after that in their lives? I know they sacrificed this for their girls, but at some point your children are like, I don't know. I think of all these faces on the wall and sacrifices, outrageous sacrifices that they had to make, and the hardships of being an immigrant in the United States. Is there regret? Do they feel like there was, I mean, they've been here for decades, some of them, there must be something beyond the money, right? That they reach for meaning. Did you find any commonality?
Yeah.
When you're so displaced.
No, sorry, just trying to talk what I was reading and drinking. Sorry. Yeah, I think like when, and that's a great question right there, because that leads us to like understand like the purpose of being an immigrant, that it's to really like find an opportunity in the future, not just for you necessarily, but for your family, right? And I think like myself personally, I think that's where I found like my gratitude. And I think like a lot of them found like that it was worth it to leave, and do what you do. And like, I'm the 6th of 10, and I am the last person in my generation of like, in my family that had only to finish elementary and 1 year of middle school. The rest of my family were able to graduate from college. So, and that's because my brother, sister, and I were able to provide the economy, to provide like, for paying the tuition for like their high school, their college, and then all the expenses things that we didn't have. Because when I was growing, my dad had to, my mom, especially they had to like pay for our education. Public education was not free at that time. And so it was a privilege to be able to go to elementary if you could, and like finish, like not even like, finish high school. Wow, that was a dream. And a utopia was to think about that you could do college, for people like me from the neighborhood. But coming here, like, open up all those opportunities. And you see these new generations of people, such as, doctor, an architect. And so, like, my nephew, he's a graphic designer. My niece, she's a doctor, and my younger brother, he's an engineer, like mechanical engineer. So, and my sister, she's an accountant. She works, like, for different companies. And I feel so grateful for that.
Your efforts or through a family, other members of your family who were able to find more opportunities?
Sorry?
Was that because of you and your efforts and your earnings, or was that a group effort among your family?
I think it's both. It's both. Because one of the things that we need to do when we decided to leave our countries is like finding money. How do you get to this country? And we were poor. I mean, extremely, extremely poor. And to pay $12,000 when I left, it's not that we had that. So, but we have to find somebody. There was a business. There were people, rich people, who knew that people was desperate leaving. So they decided, hey, I have money. Okay, here is $10,000, $12,000, but you gotta pay me like 8% for this money every month. But before you get money, you gotta give me something. So it's kind of like a mortgage. My parents had to like mortgage their house in the hands of this illegal way of, giving money to people. So, they trust me. And so my way to repay that is by making something possible for them. So, but that was a common thing. I have my brother, my sister, so we work together to make this possible for them. But I always was curious. I always wanted to do things. I got my GED here in New York, and then when I tried to go to college, it was difficult because I wasn't documented. And with other things, I decided to move back to Ecuador. I pursued my education there. I went to college. I graduated like in cultural studies, my undergrad, and then right away I got a scholarship to go to Canada to do my master's in anthropology. And I did that like in 2010, 2013. So, I mean, it's because I took my shot. I took my shot, and I was able to have good people in my life and to listen. And my first job as a, cleaning floors in Pizza Hut, like my dream was like, my dream is to learn how to make pizzas. And the other guy who was a dishwasher, he was like, well, if you want to get there, you need to learn English. Like, okay, that's the way. So that's how like a lot of that started. And so I kept moving on that, and I learned. I learned how to communicate with people, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I discovered myself. That I can be two people in one. Yeah, yeah.
So thank you for sharing these stories. Means a lot. And I was in Ecuador over the summer during Brattleboro. I arrived for the national strike.
Oh, really? I was there too. At the same time. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, same time.
So, I mean, just from an outsider's observer, that perspective, just I was very impressed how indigenous communities have kind of reclaimed the identities and fought against the exploitation by lasso and the right-wing government. So I'm just, you talked about the indigenous identity and other things I read on these places. What do we lose when we cross a border? So you feel like there's a loss of that identity when you cross into the States? I mean, you kind of lose, there's no longer that degradation, of identity. It's more, you're just illegal.
Well, sorry.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic question, because when you grow up, pushed, like forced to accept yourself or to erase who you are, we were fed into this illusion of the concept called the mestizo concept. There is a concept, it's a very it was like a very marketing thing created by neoliberal government that pushed that concept in Latin America to make people believe that with a mestizo identity, we can have a national identity because everybody's going to be the same. So therefore, we don't need to be calling you Quechua, we don't need to be calling you Shuar, we can need, there's no need to have ethnicities around you because everybody's going to be mestizo and everybody's going to be in the same side. And so that was the idea. And so I grew up thinking that, believing in some ways that, or pretending that I am part of that. So my indigenous part was always followed, it was a ghost, right? I never wanted to accept it. I was pushing away. When I crossed the border, what I lost was that ghost. The ghosts that were pushing me to think that I am not that, but this mestizo idea. I I lost this illusion of I was something else. And I started embracing, perhaps little by little, my real identity. I grew up in a very conservative city, very Catholic, very strong against gay people, a very racist discrimination, a lot of discrimination against black people, right? So if you see a black person on the street, you got to cross or you pointed. Or if you see a gay, you never sit down because then all of a sudden you gotta turn gay. And we grew up believing those things. We were fed by those things. So when you are a kid, you think that's real. And you are introduced to that. So when I cross the border, when I get to New York, I end up in a neighborhood with people from the different islands. From Haiti, from Dominica. It was a very black community. What I was going to do there, right? So I needed to learn how to take that away. So I lost that. I let it go. I I liberate myself. But also there are other things that you lose because it are happening to you at the moment when you cross a border that are very tangible. Sometimes you lose your ethic because of the way that crossing a border happened. I walked for 3 days and 3 nights, but I got to Mexico and I had to find we hire. I said we because I traveled with other 3 Ecuadorians. We get to Mexico and we get to this area in the north part of Mexico, in the borders of Arizona and Sonora. So we found this coyote person, the smuggler, to cross it. So by the time we were about to cross, we were 20 people. So 4 Ecuadorians and 16 other, I don't know, Central American, Mexicans, I don't know. So we were together, everybody was part of the deal, and all of a sudden, like this woman from Mexico, very good looking woman, very young woman, she wanted to cross with us. She didn't have money, right? She didn't have the money that she needed, but then she made a deal, or he made a deal. So you can imagine what kind of deal. So going on the way, like 3 days and 3 nights, seeing that action happening over and over again. He taking advantage of it over and over again. But you could not do anything. You have to remain silent. You could not be a hero because you are in the desert with a guy who was, your life depended on that person. Your morals, your ethics, I lost those things there. I could not say, hey, stop, dude. That's not okay. No. And that's like a body memory that I always carry with me. So like, it makes me feel frustrated. But I know that I can do better now. I cannot change that. But it still hurts. Right? And it still hurts and reminds me that I lost that at that time. But somehow I need to find that moral and that ethic to do better in a different setting. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. It's a lot. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Was there any fear of exposure?
Sorry?
Was there any fear of exposure, like in this project, from anybody concerned about, spending 20 years being undocumented and always having that fear factor?
Yeah, that's it.
I just wondered if this project,
That's a great question. I don't know if like fear was the thing, but I think I would say like I want to say we Ecuadorians, we are very shy when we talk about taking our picture. And so we feel very not uncomfortable, but like kind of like we need to learn how to see our beauty, and we don't know. And so we always feel kind of like ashamed of that. Like, that's not a good picture. Oh, I look, I don't know. And I think that's the part that was hard for me because I took a picture and say, oh, look at this. Like, oh, I'm too dark. My nose is too, it's kind of, but in a very like particular way that is showing like, feeling like this feeling ashamed, but it's this kind of like shame of like a lot of history, of all these layers that I've been sharing with you. Not feeling comfortable with the way who you are. It's easy for like people like say, okay, well, take a selfie or like take a picture with your phone, right? So you get a picture, and the phone is a very informal thing. But when you come with a camera, with a real camera, that says something else. That shows, for me at least, like, no, it's a sense of like, wow, it looks more professional, or I say professional. Yeah, that's the word. And gives a different environment, a different idea of the image that you're capturing. And when they see that in this real big machine, and I would say, we feel like that we don't belong, or like it's too much for us. You know, we prefer like a picture on the phone, then and then it will make it happy. But it's because the lack of like confidence and self-esteem, it's still there. That's the part that I notice constantly. There's a lot of work to do on that. And I think like, I've been able like, through my different like exposure to different environments as an anthropologist, I was able to gain something. I was able to grow up in a different way and see some things that they haven't. They haven't get a chance. Most of them, they haven't get a chance, but I got the opportunity to do that. So I see the world in a different way. But when I sit with them and I see like, wow, that's still there, present. So, yeah, I don't know. That answer your question.
Well, it's so clear that we are here, that message, and it's wonderful to see everybody. I just wondered if there's, we are here, come and find us, I just wondered about that.
Yeah, yes, there was a lot, there's some people that I call and they never show up, and I was always like, they don't care, or I need to accept that their lives are different. My style of life is different than their style. I need to follow their steps. I need to follow them. I don't want them to follow me. So that takes time, but I live here, I don't live there. That makes things challenging, so, yeah. Have a question? Yeah.
Well, someone behind me with a question.
Not sorry, you can.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I have a thought.
Okay,
Thoughts or questions, and questions are fun. I want to thank you for, I don't know about anybody else in this room on this side, but so many experiences in life, you realize how little you were aware of this kind of reality, of what this reality is, coming from your country, or coming from whatever country you came from, to getting wherever you ended up, what that experience entails, what that experience encompasses, the depth of the kind of dislocation and the challenges and the heartbreak and the loneliness, the loneliness. And I wanted to really thank you for letting me feel it.
What do your friends and family think of this?
I mean, they are proud, and it make me feel happy. And when I call my dad, my mom, they don't have social media, but my brothers, they show them. What are you doing? That's so good. I'm so proud of you. Or friends that are not here, and I have my website and their pictures are not there, and they're like, hey, you should let me know. I want my face there. I want, come, take a picture of me. You're missing me. What happened? We're not friends anymore. I think that makes me feel that, accomplished and motivated to continue doing more. And to acknowledging that this is not a final product, and I don't know if there's going to be one, but it's the beginning of something that could be bigger than what I thought. So, yeah, and then, I don't know, even myself, just when I open and I see, they sharing, it's happening, come see this, and people come, it's like, wow, just really, feeling that pride it is big, and I have to say, I have to know, I enjoy that, with very humble of that, but with a lot of joy. So, thank you.
Thank you, Marco.
Thank you. Thank you.